Joel from the Board Game Mechanics. Today I'm taking a look at a game called Welcome to. This one was at Origins, but it, I think, first became really more widely available at Gen Con. So kind of a newer game. I don't personally have this game, but I did get a chance to play it. I haven't played it more than once, so it's just going to be kind of my first impressions of this game. So I haven't played this game 10 times. I played it once. This is how I feel about it after one play, and I don't know. This is one of those games that I think I got the full flavor of the game after one play. And can get a really pretty good sense of it. So don't totally take my word for it, I guess, but at the same time, I feel like pretty confident that my feelings about this are going to hold up. So let's talk real quick about this game. Let's go right into the gameplay. Here is a sheet from the game. It's a roll and write game, but really more like a flip cards and write game, because you're taking cards and you're flipping them over. So the one side of the card's a number, the other side's like the card back, but the card back has kind of a symbol on it where it's going to basically give you a certain benefit. So there's, like I said, a number and then a benefit on those cards when they flip. So what does that do for you? Well, you're going to be writing numbers in these houses, those rows of houses. And those rows of houses, they basically are, you want to fill those in like Racco, kind of. You want to fill them in like how you on Racco put cards in ascending order. Well, in this, you're going to put numbers in ascending order. But there's certain rules for like how you can manipulate those numbers a little bit with those powers. And basically you're choosing from those cards that are flipped up. So what does that look like? Well, what do the cards look like? The cards are basically, there's 3 stacks of them. We all look at the same 3 stacks of cards. So all of us simultaneously look at these cards and pick one of the 3 numbers and then the corresponding power to use on our sheets. So for example, that middle one there, that 13, I would put a 13 on one of the houses, and then I would fill in a bubble because I'm beautifying my neighborhood. That's what that symbol means. So more on the symbols in a second, but basically you're doing that, but trying to also kind of group houses using fences and then kind of erase. So if you look on the complete left-hand side of those cards, there's like 3 criteria cards, 3 like victory point cards, I guess you could call them. Let's say if you're able to complete groups of like, say a group of 3 houses, another group of 3 houses, and then another group of 5 houses, then you get to flip that card over and write the higher point value on it. So there's kind of a race aspect to it as well. So you want to place the numbers in a way that makes sense and will do well for you long term, but also you kind of want to move quickly towards getting a goal accomplished. So kind of a neat thing there. And that it adds kind of a balance between trying to race out there and get these things done, but then also you kind of have to be more deliberate maybe with your actions if you really want to score points in other ways. The game is over when someone finally, there's three little criteria there. When someone has accomplished all 3 of those criteria, the game's over, or when you get to the point where you're unable to use, if you're unable to use the numbers, then cards that flip up a certain number of times, then the game's over because you basically have come to the end in a bad way. So a little more on that in a minute here when we look at the scoring sheets. Here are how those powers work that I was talking about on the card backs. So the top one's a fence. The fences allow you to draw in vertical lines that group the houses. And that's really kind of at the core of this game, that you have to do that Racco type mechanism where you're putting houses in ascending order, but then you are putting them in groups. And so you're trying to get a group of 3 done quick and another group of 3, maybe in the same row done quick. So that you can meet the criteria for the demand cards or whatever those victory point cards are called. The next one is a purple card, purple power. The purple power lets you basically increase the value of the groups of houses. So a group of 3 houses is worth 3 points. Well, then if you get that purple power and utilize it, you get to fill in the 3 on their sheet. And then it makes that group of 3 houses worth like maybe 4 points a piece instead of 3. So it really changes the way how you do scoring for just your neighborhood. So using that purple power to power up your points is kind of a tongue twister, but it's also a really cool way to be able to make your unique way of scoring more powerful. Next is the biz power. The biz power is basically allowing you to repeat a number in your row. Simple enough, right? So you have to go in ascending order, but sometimes you just have a hard time getting the right number to pop up, and you can use a number adjacent to a house that already has that number if that number's corresponding with that biz card. So it has to be like a 7 with that biz. That allows you to put a 7 on your row of houses again, but with a B next to it, saying I repeated using a biz power. The other thing too is biz powers actually harm you. They take away points from you. Whereas the next power I'm going to talk about, which is like kind of the hazard power. Oh, my dogs are back there. You hear them? They love this game too. I knew I left my door open. I knew as soon as I left my door open when I started recording, they were going to be super noisy. So anyway, the hazard power, you basically mark one of those off on the bottom of your sheet, and every hazard you get gets added up Well, if you have the most hazards at the end of the game, you actually score quite a few points. So I think 7 points maybe for having the most times you use that hazard power, which I think really honestly all in all is kind of a handicap, because using those other powers I think is generally going to give you more than 7 points, but it's kind of a way to, at least you got some points out of that. Whereas the biz does take away your points. But the hazard power, how you use that, is it allows you to add 1 or 2 to the value of the number with the corresponding card in that pile. So if you had a 7, it would let you put all the way up to a 9 or as low as a 5 in your row of houses, and then fill in one of those hazard. The pools are kind of tricky. They're basically, some of the houses have pools printed in the backyards in them. If you're able to use the number that corresponds with that pool into that house, you fill in one of your pool bubbles. But the thing that makes it tricky is the way how the pools are placed. It's really hard to know what number you need in there, unless it's kind of lucky and you're at like kind of the end part of the game and you're like, oh yeah, of course the 7's going to work there because there's a 6 next to it. Or there's one pool that's kind of in the front of the row. So if you get a really low number with a pool, you can kind of go, oh yeah, I can use that pool for that. But they're really tricky and kind of a gamble. The final thing is the beautification thing. You're basically putting parks into your rows of houses. So when you do this, you're filling in a bubble that you can see on the sheet when we go to it here in a second. And it's going to basically keep increasing the value of your points and just kind of a bonus, like really not related to the rest of the game kind of track. But however, if you ignore it, you're going to lose a bunch of points. If you really pay a lot of attention to it, you can get up to 50 points. So it's almost a way of, if you use your numbers real carefully and you don't have to use those like modifier powers, you can really get a bunch of points on those parks and beautification things. So anyway, let's look back here again at the score sheet or at the player sheet. The bottom half is where you keep score at. So all the way on the left-hand side, that group of bubbles are for like those cards that I talked about where you get a victory condition or victory point condition of like getting the right groups of houses completed first, or then just getting them completed, period. If you get it done first, you get more points. Everyone else gets a lower point value after they complete it. But completing all 3 of those bubbles ends the game. So it's a race to try and get those done and get them done for a lot of points. Next is the beautification thing I talked about. So if you look at the rows of houses, there's little rows of bubbles above the houses. Those are what you fill in, and they have ascending points in them all the way till where you get to. You really can just barely see it. There's a big, big point value at the end there. So the way how the points go, though, is that you start with, like, in the top row, it goes 0, 2, 4, jumps all the way to 10 if you max it out. And then the bottom row it goes 2, 4, 5, 6, 18. So it jumps like crazy. So you really are trying to max that out to that last number because there's a huge jump in points if you really beautify things. So that's, again, kind of neat and how that plays out. Then the purple, or let's go to the pools there. I explained those. You just fill those in. You can see the points ascend in that quite a bit, go up fairly fast. Next is the hazards, just to keep track of who has the most hazards. Again, at the end of the game, if you have the most hazards, you end up getting kind of a little like prize, I guess, of getting some points. But if you had to use the hazard a ton, you're not scoring points in other ways. The purple is basically going to modify how you score your groups of houses. So that stair step there, you fill in the top of the stair step and then work your way down the column, increasing the value. In this card, I filled in the 3s, and they went from being worth 3 all the way up to being worth 6 over the course of 3 bubbles I filled in. So I doubled the value of a 3, a group of 3 houses at the end of the game. The biz, you fill those in, you keep getting negative points. The more you go up, the more negative points you get. And then finally, you have to fill in the little bubble there if you aren't able to do anything with any of the cards that are out because you've not planned very well. And the cards that popped out, none of them worked for you. And then also there's a variant there that you can play that I'm not really going to touch on because I'm just talking about the base game right now. But basically that's the whole game. You score it like that. So what are my thoughts on this game? I love this game, and here's why. It's accessible. This game is playable with almost anybody. I mean, like small children who can't play games at all aren't going to be able to play this game. But people who have played games, even like your traditional family games like Racco and, like Sorry, are going to be able to pick up this one pretty quickly. It's a really cool blend of familiar mechanic, kind of presented in a new way, is my second point. I really like that. I like how it's like that Racco filing kind of thing, but then also you're doing some like grouping and like, and then just like the way how you have to like kind of make meaningful choices with those mechanics to try and like modify how you're going to place those cards. So in Racco, you don't have ways to modify those cards very well. In this one, you can kind of modify your numbers and use those powers to score points differently. And the way how that whole bottom part of the house, the cards, the houses thing is a meaningful series of choices on where you're going to put stuff at, but how you're going to modify that bottom half with those scoring, like different mechanisms for scoring, really makes this game have a lot of meaningful choices in it. Pretty neat. The whole thing plays in like around half an hour, maybe a little less even. So those are the great things about it. Do I have any drawbacks for it? Yes, absolutely. Kokoro is one of my favorite games. That's a roll and write. I also like, Harvest Dice and some other roll and writes, but this one's just as good as those. However, when roll and writes use paper, you eventually run out of sheets. And this one has 100 sheets in it. And I could see playing this game with 4 people 25 times easy. And I don't know how easy it's going to be to get new pads for this game. Or if you're going to have to buy a whole new game. It's not that expensive of a game. And after 25 plays, you probably would have gotten your money's worth, honestly. But I really wish they would have put dry erase boards in there. Because the other thing, too, is I think this game would have benefited from being able to use felt tip markers on it. I think that the numbers and the lines would have stuck out a little better with felt tip markers than pencils. It would have just been visually a little more pleasing. And then I think you could have gotten like almost infinite play out of this game then. I think they went with paper sheets probably because they wanted to not limit your player count, because you literally could play this game with 100 players. You're all doing your thing simultaneously. As many people as can see those cards can play the game. I've even heard of people putting the game up on an overhead projector and allowing just a ton of people to play this game at once, as many as like maybe 100 even. But you do only get 100 sheets in the game, so you'd play once if you play with 100 people. So I do wish it came with laminated sheets or with dry erase board sheets, but it's a minor thing, I guess, that we have to go laminate them ourselves or buy more pads after we're done. The other thing too about laminating these sheets is this box is really tight on the size of this pad. So if you leave any kind of margin around your lamination so it doesn't delaminate, I don't think your sheets are going to fit in this box anymore, which is a bummer. It really is. I like things to fit into boxes, but c'est la vie, I guess. And then the pencils that this game comes with are an absolute joke. I think that anybody who owns this game would have paid an extra $1 to get proper pencils in it, proper golf-sized pencils in it. The pencils that are in it right now are literally half of a golf pencil, just so tiny. So with those positives and those negatives and my enthusiasm for this game, I think you probably can understand that I really like this game and that it is going to be board game mechanics accepted. And you can see my tiny little, I forgot to edit this, I guess. A 4.5 out of 5 rating is what I'm giving this one at this time. It's a very good game, really, really good game. I like it a lot. I would suggest it to 80% probably of board game players and owners to go ahead and add this to the collection. At this price point, it's just a really good game. And if you don't have any other roll and write games, this is a great foray into it. Just a really cool game. Really love it. And I didn't think I was going to like it that much. I went into this thinking that this game's really hot. It's probably going to disappoint me. But man, it really is a lot of fun. It's simple, just pure fun. I mean, and it's something that's a great filler. You know, play it between those Vidal Lacerda games or something and let your brain take a rest, but just have a good time. So I've been Joel, and I'm with the Board Game Mechanics, like I mentioned before. We do have a podcast. We have a YouTube page that you're on right now, probably, potentially. We also have a Facebook page where we do a lot of conversations with the community. So all three of those things, they are providing you with a full service garage's worth of board gaming information. I think that you should check us out and engage in some conversation with us. We really love engaging with you guys. And if you are liking these YouTube videos, and you've seen Jason, who's the other guy who does the videos on this channel, he and I do a podcast together weekly, which not every podcast does weekly, and we do weekly. And we provide about an hour-long show, perfect for those commutes. If you just can't get enough of board game information, we're definitely for you. And I really honestly think that we are in the upper tier of board gaming podcasts. We're just a lot of fun. I really enjoy listening to the shows myself. So I consume the art as well as make it. So really do enjoy it. Check out our podcast. I'm really proud of it, and I hope you guys like it too. Subscribe to this. Leave us a thumb up. Check out our Facebook page. Go subscribe to our podcast too if you want more board game stuff in your life. So anyway, I've been Joel with the Board Game Mechanics. Thanks for watching. I really do appreciate you guys watching. These views mean a lot to me. Keep them coming. Really appreciate it. And just go check out our stuff. Thanks for the encouragement and keeping us going. We really, really do love hanging out with you guys and talking to you guys. And keep gaming.